What about, a lot of people, will say, oh, this is good and well and great. I'm glad for you got better and healthier, but I couldn't afford this diet. I mean, what are your thoughts on relative cost now versus maybe what you might have been eating in the past? Now you and both your husband are more or less on this, it sounds like. Is it dramatically increasing your food costs, or is the overall cost less due to maybe, you know, supplements, medications, doctor visits, or just food in general?
Actually, that's a very good point. Okay, so I didn't think about that in those terms that how much you were paying to go see doctors and stuff. But that's a very good point. Yeah, I haven't been to a doctor this year at all. I mean, maybe next year I'll go for annual physical, but I haven't had the need to go. But I think I have noticed that if you're buying other things like veggies and other like knickknacks like nuts or things like that, I know the price of meats, especially right now. I mean, I have noticed everyone has, I'm sure the prices of meat are going up, beef particularly. But I think we stick to a lot of also cheaper cuts sometimes, though you can get really creative with them and like really delicious recipes like roasts and things like that. And even with pork alternating, I think overall, if you're not buying what I have noticed, if you're not buying all the other things that you would buy before and you're buying meat, it kind of it's eventually there's a balance to it because number one, I'm not eating as much as I used to in terms of consistent snacking. So I have no need to pile up on things that I will snack on. I'm only eating really mainly eggs, like bacon or sausage, and then meats for dinner. And then the other thing is also, we noticed like before when you buy veggies, fruits, or other things like that, it would go bad really fast and you just wasted your money on getting these things that you got to get to and eat. The good thing about this stuff is that, you could just buy and put meat in the freezer and you can pull it out, defrost, and then, as you need for the next day or whatever. But also these foods don't go bad as quickly. So you can eat them and then you're not really wasting food. That's one thing I did notice, that we weren't tossing food out. We weren't really trashing food at that point because we were actually eating everything. We would get to it. If you don't get to it in a week, it's not going to go bad, like eggs or cheese or things like that. So in terms of cost, yeah, I know that the beef is more expensive now. Like we're not eating like ribeye every day, but there are other different meats to eat are just as good and fatty. So I think before, obviously, let's say we go to Costco and get one pack of ribeye, we had like 6 pieces in it, 5, like at least. And now it's like down to 3 or something. We also get from other online places when we order, and then they just deliver it in like nicely packed. I also do a lot of bone broths. I think it does offset just because you're not going out there and buying all the other things. I know from the get-go, you see the price, you're like, oh my God, this is so expensive, I can't do it. You don't have to eat ribeye every day. You can eat like delicious variations of ground beef made into different keftas or tacos or other things. You can experiment with other meats. There's like a lot of fun you can have. I know it's intimidating seeing some prices of the meat, but it's not hard when you start like buying all the other types of meat and mixing it up. Yeah, or eggs, get eggs. So
Yeah, you didn't mention if you're in New York City or New York State. I mean, most people when they think about New York, just think about New York City because there's so many people there. But and whether you're there or not, I mean, any thoughts on, you've got a Mayor Eric Adams, who is, I guess he's sort of a vegan. I guess he eats fish still. He calls it a plant-based centered life or something along those lines. And there's Meatless Monday, which I think de Blasio brought in. And then there's Vegan Friday, and they're trying to sort of push this plant-based narrative down people's throats in some way. Are you impacted by that at all? Do you see that? Is that just a headline, or is there actually a real effort to see this going on? And are you concerned about it, that it might impact you negatively, as maybe not, at some point you could see where they attempt to make meat so cost prohibitive or taxed or difficult that a lot of people that are getting health benefits from this won't be able to do it anymore. Are you concerned about that, or do you see any of that happening?
Well, I think it depends where you live. I'm definitely not in the city. if you're away from the cities, I think it's a little bit different, to be honest. But I'm in a little bit more rural. There are a lot of farms around me. Like sometimes I'll go to a farm to pick up like meats and bones, like or whatever. But it is hard to kind of be impacted by things like that if you're in the city. I mean, city is also very expensive anyway. The cost of living is more expensive. So I could, if it's already expensive, people might decide not to get meat because they need to pay rent. I'm not sure, but I could see that happening. But as for me, I have decided not to live in the city anymore because luckily I work from home. So it works out, and it depends where you are. I could see that how that could also impact people's decision. Yeah.
Some people will experiment by putting other foods back in the diet. Once they feel better, maybe they'll add some vegetables, some rice, some fruits, some potatoes, things like that. Have you played with any of that stuff? Have you tried to do any of that? And if so, what was your experience?
So yeah, as I said, my mom was visiting from California, so I did. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I don't regret it. You can go back, but I did eat some of her food. I think one thing I did observe is this: while I did it for a week, a non-carnivore diet, the number one thing that really just damaged my insides was nuts. Again, just to say, like, clear. I had some walnuts and cashews. That really messed me up pretty bad. And even if I just didn't eat it for the next day, that lasted for a few days. But then even when I didn't have nuts, I had some sweet potatoes at one point, and I did have like other things that are made with flour. There's no equivalent of that in English, but things that had flour, dough. Yeah, I just could feel that it wasn't the same in terms of I upped my magnesium dose citrus to just help me at that point because I voluntarily put myself in that situation, but it was also part of me was just like excited. My mom was here and she was making food and delicious food, she would make. But I did notice that incorporating some of those foods. Now, I don't know, obviously, the nuts definitely are just like a big no for me at this point and prove themselves to be. But the other stuff also didn't help, even if it wasn't nuts, like the potato, yam, or doughy things. Also, something just wasn't sitting well. I was just like ridiculously bloated and so uncomfortable to a point I couldn't sleep at nights because of the pain. Very bad pain. And then I just couldn't focus throughout the day. It's just like this constant rock. I don't know, like it was the worst feeling ever, like expanded stomach, just ridiculous pains. And then I often would gain like shooting pains around where my stomach is. So yeah, I just, obviously when she left, I stopped doing it. That's why I'm doing the fasting, so I could just reset and go back